reminder for those who don't know, we're not just a podcast. We are a medical device recruiting firm and we fill positions nationally. There's not one state I know of where we have not made placements. Visit chasemedsearch.com to find our latest position listings. You can also find me, Jordan Chase, on LinkedIn, and I post up-to-date position listings there. I'm capped at 30,000 LinkedIn connections, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, but unfortunately, I can't accept your invitation if you send me one. Finally, if you've got feedback on our podcast, please email it to me at jordan@chasemedsearch.com. I love suggestions for topics for the show. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe on YouTube. It does help grow the show. Welcome back to the Chase MedSearch podcast. Delighted to have my guest today, Andre Dubose, a commercial healthcare sales executive with an absolute wealth of medical device sales and sales leadership background, especially in spine, which some might say is the hardest niche of the industry. Andre has served also in sales roles in pharma earlier in his career. And for the past 2.5 years, he has worked for Vizient, where he won President's Club in 2023 and Principal Top Performer for the Southeast region. Vizient is a large member-owned healthcare services company that focuses on improving healthcare performance. New and renewed clients for 2025 include MedStar Health, Centara Health, UMass, Halifax Health, Spartanburg Regional Health Services, and many more. It's an extensive list. Andre resides in Atlanta, Georgia with his wife, Larissa, and their daughter. I think of Andre as one of the truly good guys in medical. Every time I see him at meetings, he's got a smile on his face and a positive attitude. Welcome to the podcast, Andre.
Hey, Jordan, thank you so much. It was such a very kind and warm introduction. I guess that means I'm old. I've been around for a while and had the good fortune to be able to do some cool things along the way. So I welcome that. So thank you.
Yes, you have some very cool things. Just to maybe get things started, the last time we talked, your wife was making major moves in the world of wine. And I saw that she was recently a speaker at the Culinary Institute of America's Wine and Beverage Summit. Is that right?
Yeah, she is by far my better half. We just celebrated our 11th year of marriage on Saturday, and she's just amazing. And so she is a certified sommelier, but also a certified amazing person, wonderful mom, and fantastic friend. So she's doing amazing things, and I'm just trying to keep the tempo.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine that doesn't hurt to have a secret weapon when you're going off to some physician dinner or something and there's going to be wine served and you would like to have a little inside knowledge to drop, you know.
Listen, when I'm with her, she's just a very memorable person. So when people meet her, they never forget her, and they oftentimes will see me and say, "Where's Larissa?" I'm like, "Good to see you as well." But she taught me a very valuable lesson back when I was in devices, and she talked about how wine is your superpower. Wine knowledge is your superpower, and so being able to really command a room and to be the host and reshape the way that someone might be viewing and perceiving you by your level of knowledge around wine, is powerful. It also helps you stay within budget as well when you are able to own the wine list. But yeah, so she's taught me a number of things, but that's definitely one that I professionally have applied.
That's just fantastic. So just to dive in to your move to Vizient, which I just was so fascinated by. You have real medical device chops. I mean, you worked, as I mentioned, in some really tough jobs in the industry, did great things. I mean, for those who don't know Vizient and what Vizient is, what they do, and why that was a good career move for you, tell us about it. Vizient, I know, is massive. I talked about that, fill us in a little bit.
Sure. So Vizient is the nation's leading healthcare performance improvement company. Been around for just under 50 years in various iterations. But by and large, most people know Vizient as a group purchasing organization. And we are that, but we're a lot more than that. So as a trusted partner to a number of hospital systems across the country, we've been able to help them improve their financial performance by aggregating or bringing together buying power.
Hmm.
But based upon those trusted relationships with the nation's leading institutions, a number of those facilities said, "Hey, can you help us in some other ways?" And so from there, through acquisition as well as through our own iteration, we've been able to expand our capabilities and skill set around operational performance and quality performance, market growth as well. So even last year, we purchased an organization called Kaufman Hall, which really continued to solidify our position to do everything that a healthcare system domestically would need in order to navigate these challenging times. And needless to say, there's no shortage of those challenging times with tariffs and with the changes going on around the beltline and around the beltway, excuse me, and just the continued dynamics around labor and how you continue to compete in a marketplace with challenging margins. And this is following COVID and following some of the other challenges that organizations had to contend with. So Vizient's well positioned as that strategic partner to help those organizations navigate those challenges and to be able to find success. Because at the end of the day, our success is predicated on our customers' success, and their success is predicated on patients' lives being improved. And so it's fun work that we get to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, why should medical reps care about what Vizient does? If I'm a medical rep and I just got my head down and I'm, you know, working in spine cases and calling
Mhm.
on surgeons and all that, why should I take 2 seconds out of my day to think about Vizient?
Well, I think and kind of mentioned this briefly, is because Vizient has that partnership with a number of these hospital systems in
Hmm.
order to gain access on contracts and things of that nature. It's a critical component that those organizations understand, what those strategic partnerships look like.
Hmm.
I'd say those individuals who are transitioning into some of the national accounts roles, because that might be a part of their future within their current organization. Those national account roles, they are working really closely with organizations like Vizient and others in order to gain their position within that particular hospital system or IDN or through our GPO. And
Hmm.
so that's just at its core why someone who's living and breathing in that world should be paying attention to what's going on at Vizient. But I'll take it a step further and say the one of the really cool things that Vizient does is we have tons of data and analytics. And so when you start saying that my product is going to provide better quality outcomes and shorten length of stay, and there's going to be a financial improvement as a result of using my tool or my robot versus someone else's, well, how do you substantiate that? Right. And so Vizient has strategic partnerships that they conduct with industry, with those vendors, in order to better tell those stories and to provide data around, well, what markets are growing, what procedures are growing, what does the current healthcare landscape look like? Are procedures going into the outpatient environment? Okay, so which procedures are going there? That data and that information becomes extremely important, whether you're a sales rep who's looking to determine which product line or which company or technology you're interested in pursuing, or if you are in a much higher level strategic role within an organization to determine, well, how are you going to place these bets for the future? You
Hmm.
want to do so where opportunity is definitely going to be growing. And it's hard to do that without data and analytics to be able to guide your path.
Yeah, absolutely. Data and analytics. I mean, that's the way the world's going, nonstop. And we may talk about that a little bit later. What does your day to day job look like? I know what you were doing when you were a sales director and leading teams and hiring people and high level customer meetings. What's changed? What's stayed the same? What does it give us a glimpse into the day to day life of working at Vizient?
Sure. So currently, I'm an individual contributor in that principal role
Hmm.
for enterprise partnerships. So in essence, I serve as the C-suite liaison or the point person that manages the relationship of all things Vizient with our providers that we support, of which I cover national accounts. And so, my day to day, we're a matrixed organization, so I'll have, a host of individuals in all of our respective domains that are part of our customer engagement team that I interface with and work very closely with to ensure that we're all, singing from the same hymnal, so to speak, when we're interfacing with those organizations,
Hmm.
and that all of our efforts are truly aligned with the strategic imperatives and the strategic vision that that organization has. We don't want to just throw stuff against the wall simply because we have a capability. It has to
Hmm.
align with what's important to them. So I work really closely with a very collaborative team to ensure that we continue to do that and just organize our efforts in partnership with those facilities. So that's kind of the behind the scenes internal part. As far as the customer facing component, every C-suite persona, I'll have responsibility for building relationships and providing ongoing support to. And so my day consists of discussions around quality outcome measures and different data and analytics around how these facilities are performing compared to their peer groups and how we can further provide them with tools or resources in order to take that data and tell a compelling story, because data is great, right? It's wonderful to have it, but what's the story that it's telling, and how do you really use that directionally to change or shape the direction that your organization is going? So I'll participate in those types of conversations as well as with other C-suite personas to ensure that, overall, that their needs are being met and that the challenges that they're currently facing, if there's something that we can do to provide support, whether it's a SaaS tool, whether it's a subject matter expert to have a conversation with, or if they are looking for us to provide embedded resources and things of that nature, something much more comprehensive from a consulting lens, that we're in position to be able to provide that type of support to them. So it really can vary to a large extent. I'm getting used to taking on national account responsibility because, I live in Atlanta. And
Hmm.
so those phone calls or emails for my West Coast members, can definitely take a different, take a different shape. But they're awesome and really good people to work with. So it makes it easy for me to extend my working hours a little bit in order to
Okay.
support them.
I know the pain of that. I'm on Central Time, so they're just 2 hours behind me. They're 3 hours behind you, right?
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
can stretch on into the evening, I'm sure. Some of
yeah,
those.
yeah. You know what? But again, I think the main thing that I continue to focus on is I get a chance. This is the work that I get to do,
Hmm.
not just the work that I have to do.
Yeah.
And when I have a conversation with someone and they're willing to share some of the challenges that their organizations are facing, and the plan that they have put into place, and enlist me in the process of either
Hmm.
just understanding it on a basic level or being able to partner with them on a more detailed and focused level. It's really rewarding because back to one of the kind of how you were framing the question, I've gotten an opportunity to do things in this particular space that I just don't know how I would have been able to do that through some of my other experiences,
Hmm.
outside of Vizient. And so it's really cool to participate in these conversations and understand really what's going on this side of the moon related to healthcare.
Yeah. What is the coolest thing that you've experienced so far, just on a personal level, working there, what you've seen or impact that you feel like you had, or, you know, taking a
Mm,
hospital from, I don't know, point C to point A and everybody's high fiving each other? What's the, yeah, because I think about in device, you get these dopamine hits, right?
mhm.
You're in a successful case if you're a rep and you walk out, the patient's better, and family's grateful, and the doctor's like, this is awesome, and you got a PO that day. How does it hit differently at Vizient?
It's a good question. I've been able to, well, from a personal perspective, I've been able to very fortunate to say that I've found some success here at Vizient in a short period of time. And
Putting plaques on the wall, yeah, that's success.
Listen, look, my President's Club trophy is in my daughter's room. Like,
There you
true
go.
story,
Hmm.
right? Like, it wasn't necessarily the accolade for me of walking across the stage
Hmm.
and shaking my chief customer officer's hand and hugging my leadership. It wasn't that. It was more so the impact that it had
Hmm.
on the people who were in the room who hadn't seen someone who looked like me walk across that stage. And I think it was tremendously validating for a number of individuals who didn't necessarily see themselves in those spaces,
Hmm.
didn't had not been able to fully envision what their success journey could look like.
Hmm.
I feel like I was able to serve as an example for those individuals that all of that is very possible. And so
Hmm.
I'm thankful that I was given the opportunity to carry that torch
Yeah.
because this game is you talked about the device world. It can be challenging and
Yeah.
it can be tough and daunting, and oftentimes a lot of the things that you do are going to be you know not met with cheers. It's the dirty work that's done in the middle of the night when no one's watching, when you're delivering trays
Yeah.
to a facility, trying to ask someone in sterile processing to have your sets ready for the next day. It's hoping that you have enough inventory. It's telling the uncomfortable truth to a clinician in a
Yeah.
case to make sure that they are being guided in the right direction, even if it's not the right thing you want to say. And the truth can hurt. It's like all of those things can be really difficult to navigate,
Hmm.
and that's the challenge that exists in that world. But then you also get those rewards. And so for me, I think the opportunity to have those rewards are really not for me, but really to help other people understand that regardless of what your journey looks like, how many challenges you've had to overcome and that you faced throughout your career, that there's some beauty that can come on the other side of that if you find the ability to persevere and to operate with gratitude. And so you talked about me having a smile on my face.
Hmm.
My dad will say this often, like, I'm not breaking concrete. Like, I'm very fortunate that the work that I get a chance to do, with my three screens from home,
Yeah.
is able to actually have an impact on people in a positive way. And, if that's the journey that I'm on and my crusade and what I'm supposed to be doing, then I'm thankful to be able to do it.
Yeah. That's fantastic. There's so much there uh, that you said that's just absolutely tremendous. I don't think I can improve on any of it, but I do have a question for you, which is, and I don't want to take you away from this world. I'd be tempted if I had a good job to call you and say, "Hey, man, you." But if you could step back into the world that you were in with this knowledge that you've gained now, working for
Mm.
Vizient, how would you, as a medical device sales leader, coach your team differently? What would you do different? Would you do things differently? I mean, what's additive
Yeah,
about this experience that you think, boy, if I just would have known this at that time, I would have done some things differently.
that's a great question. One thing I would definitely do differently is focus a lot less on the product or the widget or the thing.
Mhm.
Um, and what I'll say is many of my experiences, and I work for some really cool companies that have some
Yeah.
novel technologies,
Hmm.
and we spend so much time romanticizing around this particular product. I can remember vividly, and this is how I was coached, is walking around with a cervical plate in my pocket of my scrubs, so that if I happen to catch a neurosurgeon turning the corner, I can have a quick conversation and be able to pull it out. And it's like there's so many things that they're thinking about and focusing on a daily basis. And device, I think sometimes, not all, sometimes people in devices can really focus so much on their product, and their product is such a small piece of this overall ecosystem that I think it's important to take a step back, to take leaps forward, And by that, having a good appreciation and understanding for the world that these individuals exist in, some of the challenges that they're trying to contend with, what are they ultimately trying to accomplish? If you're working with a provider who is interested in doing procedures at another facility, are you engaging conversations around that and what procedures they want to take over there and why they should consider that? Like you can get to higher ground in a lot of ways. And if you're at higher ground, then in many cases the products, as long as they're solid and you have great knowledge and access, the products will then become a byproduct of your ability to really drive outcomes ultimately for not only for their patient but for their practice. And I take the step further in terms of the hospital. The hospital systems are very complex environments and organizations. And if you're focused in around your piece of capital and what that can provide to that particular service line, sometimes the picture needs to be a little bit broader as to how this ultimately can really change the impact of the type of care that they're giving compared to other systems that might be in their market. And so just taking a much broader perspective around uh, the overall landscape,
Mm-hmm.
being sensitive to that and being willing to embrace this ongoing learning journey,
Mm-hmm.
I think is another part of that equation that becomes so vital. And the reality is, if you understand what someone's world is like, if you are, because it can be a lonely space, it can be a lonely environment for some of these providers. I think about it very often that I'll be in a case, and the only person who's in the case for the duration is myself, the provider, and the patient.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Circulator leaves, anesthesia leaves,
Yeah.
cell saver person leaves. It's a lot of movement. So I'm
Sure.
that steady uh, person at the helm that's there to support them. But if I'm only able to support them in this one small part of their overall world, then what's the tremendous value that I bring to the table that allows for me to be resilient? When quotas go up and
Mhm. Yeah.
and product changes are having an impact and things of that nature. So it makes you so much more resilient, and if you and also it makes you a trusted partner
Mm-hmm.
when the world that you exist in with that person or that individual or that system is far greater than just a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Hi, everyone. I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about an exciting new resource that I've discovered for new college grads and for healthcare professionals that want to break into pharmaceutical sales. upharmasales.com. That's the letter U for upharma. For years, I've thought there's a gap that exists between new college grads that want to break into healthcare sales right away and the ability to do it. But upharmasales.com fills in that gap. At uPharma Sales, you'll find insider tips on landing your first role, nailing the interview, and building confidence for this field, all from experienced reps who've been in your shoes. Ryan Conseso built the website, and he outlines the very steps he took to break into pharma sales. Pharma sales is competitive, but you don't have to figure it out alone. Set yourself apart. Go to upharmasales.com and start your journey the right way. For a discount on the online learning program, use the code CHASEMedSearch. Now go get after it. It sounds like if I'm a rep listening to this, the narrow focus on my product, my company, even the game changing revolutionary thing that it does is only a really small piece of that pie in terms of that surgeon's world. And you would say now, hey, do we understand the bigger picture? Have we stepped back and really looked at what's affecting them and what is their environment? What's happening there with them on a day-to-day basis? That's even
100%. Yeah.
affecting their work product.
It's great to have a device, a T-lift cage that's small enough to fit through an endoscope.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the true impact to endoscopic spine from a reimbursement perspective, from a patient selection perspective, and outcomes perspective? Thinking about their health grade scores
Mm-hmm.
and how that's going to be impacted in terms of patient satisfaction and being able to to gain additional business by the word of mouth through that particular community? What about if they have a surgery center, or there's a hospital outpatient facility
Right.
that these particular procedures could be conducted at? Like, if you're not thinking along those lines and you're just the person who has the thing,
Hmm.
you're on shallow ground, right? Like, someone else can come up and eventually have another thing as well.
Hmm.
So if you're not driving value and impact on a far greater level, then you run the risk of the winds of change, taking away what you might be thinking you're safe with.
Hmm.
So how do you continue to reinvent yourself? And I guess that's another piece of this conversation that I think is noteworthy and should be shared, is in coming to Vizient, I had to reinvent myself in a
Hmm.
lot of ways. The way that I functioned as a sales director and sales leader and commercial development leader with my previous roles is very different than what I do here. And I had a number of things that were very foundational that have absolutely allowed for me to feel confident in stepping into a new environment, but it's different. And so, how do you really look at the journey of personal and professional growth and development? A lot of people, they want the title or they want the financial reward, but going through that learning journey is not for everyone.
Yeah. No.
Not an easy thing to do. And you really have to embrace
Yeah.
all that comes with that learning journey in order to redefine yourself and to show that you can be a highly functioning and capable leader, regardless of some of the environments that you're in. So I'll have this conversation with my daughter. I think you can appreciate this.
Hmm.
She plays soccer. She's amazing in goal. But I oftentimes will remind her, I'm like, you're not a goalkeeper,
Hmm.
right? You're not even a soccer player. Like, you're an athlete who plays soccer and who's fantastic at goal, right? Like, you are not defined by the thing that you are doing.
Right.
You're defined by all the skill sets and all the capabilities that you have that allow you to do that really well.
Yeah.
So that's something I think a lot of individuals, particularly those who worked in med device and have found success, really have to continue to tell themselves tell themselves that story and remind themselves of on a daily basis, because it's really easy to define yourself by the thing that you're doing,
Hmm.
especially if you're working in spine and you feel like, all right, this is one of the most challenging, most competitive environments. It takes forever to learn. It's very extremely competitive. There are 100 people that will probably take your role, and raise their hand to take your role if you were to step away from it. So it comes along with this gravitas that it can be really easy to assume that you're defined by that thing. When in actuality, if you just think about it and say, I'm a healthcare executive
Hmm.
that happens to work for this particular company with this particular special service line that sells or delivers these particular types of products in this particular environment. It's like, no, I'm not just a territory manager or sales rep. Yeah, I'm so much bigger than that.
Boy, that is so true. I think I've experienced that. I know I've experienced that myself in running this business. You can call yourself a recruiter, but when you look at the end of the day, if you've placed 100 people in a year, right, each of whom drives, let's say on average, $3 million worth of revenue a year, 1.5 to $3 million a year, you're a little bit more than that if you just call yourself a recruiter, because you're helping companies solve business problems, really challenging business problems, and find absolutely capable people that can make that kind of impact in their bottom line. you know um and I think the evolution happened about 5 years in for me, because I'm a little slow on the uptake, when I began to really realize this is a lot different than working, and no disrespect to working internal at a company in a talent acquisition position, but this is a whole lot different because I'm dealing with 30, clients sometimes, and you're dealing with hundreds of people throughout the year who work in all these niches of medical, and you just know so much more than you ever did before. And I can see that happen a lot faster for you in terms of your thinking around who you are and what you do and the value you bring. But for me, it was probably 5 years. And partly because I was just so crazy busy, I didn't know what was up. We had business instantly, open the doors. Um, I want to know what great looks like from your perspective, Andre. Who's, you don't have to say names, but who does this well in terms of medical device manufacturers when they're working hand in hand? Well, I assume through Vizient, they're coming to you, you're working with your client base. What does great look like from a manufacturer standpoint? What are they taking into account? What are they thinking about at a macro level perspective so that this thing works for everybody?
So I guess what I'll say for, as far as what good looks like for those organizations is
Mm-hmm.
probably very collaborative, right? Like at its best, it has to be extremely collaborative. I think there's all too often this us against them
Mm-hmm.
mentality and approach, and I'd say that from the perspective of someone who was a sales leader within a device company, it in many cases it felt like us versus them, us being the device company and them being the hospital system, right? Like, how do we truly function and operate as a partner
Mm-hmm.
and not as a vendor? And it
Yeah.
might take longer for others to fully embrace that, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
really think through that lens as well. And I've been very fortunate to see how it looks and what that manifestation is when we're functioning not as vendor and client, but truly as two partners. Same boat, different oars, trying to go in the same direction. And so I think that's the one of the most important factors that any device manufacturer should keep in mind, whether they're trying to engage with
Mm-hmm.
Vizient on some level or whether they're working with hospital systems, is truly what does that collaboration look like? What does partnership really look like? It's oftentimes said like, oh, we want to be your partner. It's like, all right, so what does that look like? Because if you keep trying to talk
Mm-hmm.
about this one thing instead of talking about the other things that matter, you're missing a huge opportunity. I had a conversation with a leader of a hospital system that reached out to me for a discussion, and in follow up, I did some research and realized that there was a strike pending within their facility for the following
Mm-hmm.
week when they had originally said, given me some dates that we could potentially select from. And so I think you can't be tone deaf. It's like, yes,
Right.
it's great that they want to connect and
Mm-hmm.
engage and talk to me. I'm like, let me just address it before I put this on our calendar and then it gets canceled because of these other dynamics, and say, I know you have a lot going on organizationally, but so it's probably better for us to punt and revisit this conversation when the dust settles a little bit. And so dust settles, have a follow up conversation, get a chance to really not only engage in what we originally were setting out to accomplish, but engage on a deeper level around how was it to navigate this circumstance,
Yeah.
this
Oh, yeah.
situation. And so there's that
Mm-hmm.
human element of I'm not so focused on the one thing that I have that I'm trying to accomplish, where it allows for
Mm-hmm.
us to have a true engagement and a true dialogue that puts us on the same side of the table when we're negotiating a little bit easier. And again, it's not something that will always work, but I take my chances if I were a manufacturer in this day and age to really look at,
Mm-hmm.
well, what is it that I am trying to do that's going to positively impact them in their market relative to all the information that I have at my disposal. And there's a lot of information
Yeah.
out here. I think that's probably one of the other things I do is I'd look at how I'm getting information and how much preparation I'm putting forth in having these discussions with customers, because it, it invariably will present itself as with an opportunity where you're like, I'm so thankful that I did this little bit extra research, that extra 5 minutes, that extra uh, podcast that one of your providers presented on. So, for instance, like, why not just listen
Mhm.
to uh, you have a facility where the CEO has presented about Nurses Week or about Women's History Month. Take the 15, 20 minutes and listen to it. Success leaves clues, and a number of successful leaders out here are going to leave clues around what makes them tick, what's most important, what are they trying to accomplish. You take that information and apply it in a way, in a very honest and genuine way, and say, I have a better understanding and appreciation for the landscape that you all are contending with. And you speak on the things that are important to them that they've actually shared. It sets you apart from others. And if you're set apart from others, then now you're not necessarily seen as just the vendor, right? Or at least
Mhm.
when you're trying to continue to shape the perspective around you being more than a vendor, now they have a little bit of that foundation that allows for that thought to even become a reality. So I don't know if that answers your
Mhm.
question, but I think
Great.
it's just important to ensure that really function at a level where you're making an impact and you're thinking on a broader
Mhm.
scale.
Yeah. All my questions are kind of interrelated. It absolutely does answer my question. I have all these follow-on questions because I'm just sitting in my seat thinking about the audience here, which are medical reps, medical sales managers, clinical
Hmm.
people, sometimes healthcare economics people, and folks like that. And I think about the way my business has shifted over the years to more startup based. It's probably 95% startups that I work with now. If you were to design a startup, what are some of the non-negotiables that a startup medical, it could be any product, but that they want to bring to market? They've got money and they've got the dream and they've got the design and all of that together. What are some non-negotiables from your perspective in the world that we're living in now and working in that startup companies need to think about when they're coming to market in a world where Vizient exists, and you guys are providing great information to your customers to make decisions around what they're gonna, who they're gonna use, who they're gonna buy from, what they're gonna pay for it, that type of thing. So,
Yeah.
what do startups? Where do they factor in on that?
Yeah. Um, I think for a startup organization, they just have to at its core have to be solving a problem
Mm-hmm.
that is not current. Is like, we're not just trying to solve today's problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today's problem is there. You have to go deeper. It has to be like, what is tomorrow's challenge? What is the current landscape looking like over the next 5 to 10 years? And where's care going to be provided? Like, you think about the current healthcare landscape. You have the Walmart, Samsung, Walgreens, you know, Best Buy, Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of these disruptors are getting into healthcare. They're not getting into healthcare to simply solve today's problems,
Right.
right? They're getting involved to, in many cases, solve a larger problem using tools and resources and things of that nature. How do they integrate artificial intelligence and machine learning? How do they take these foundational components and apply them in a new way, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're solving a much bigger issue at hand, and finding ways to make sure that people are operating at the top of their
Mm-hmm.
license, so that the nurses and physicians and staff members are doing what only they can do,
Mm-hmm.
right? That can't
Yep.
be easily replaced. Like, if you're solving the bigger problem, then you're probably in a good foundational position, because if you're trying to solve today's problem, by the time it gets commercialized and goes out there, then you're going to have competition, and then what you're trying to deliver may get watered down.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you talk to, I would imagine if you talk to a number of the high level leaders managing healthcare systems across the country, they're thinking 5 years out, they're
Mm-hmm.
thinking 10 years out, and so you need to kind of go where the puck's going,
Yeah.
go where the ball's going, and not um, to any other position, I guess is the
Mm-hmm.
best way for me to describe it.
Yeah.
So just trying to stay ahead of it. And, these, the good thing about, I guess, what my role is at Vizient and just in general, what we do is, it's probably 50% of what we do is still in the GPO world,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
if that. And we've just evolved and grown in so many different ways. One part of our organization helps with mergers and acquisitions, or
Mm-hmm.
how do organizations continue to have their financial buying power when they're looking at um, acquiring new facilities and things of that nature. Like, it's just so much more diverse than anything that I typically would have imagined.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned being on the other side of the moon. This is hidden in plain sight, right? Like, when you go into a hospital
Yeah.
system, you know that all of these things are going on.
Yeah.
But again, it's really easy to get wrapped around the axle on the one or two things that you're focused on
Mm-hmm.
selling,
Yeah.
and not thinking about this overall system of care that is no longer just even in the hospital, right? Like, the system of care is both on the pre-acute and post-acute side. Like, it's pretty diverse in terms of where people are getting treated and how they're the quality of care that they are looking to receive is being delivered. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just in the four walls of the hospital. And so, how are you even looking to influence and support the delivery of healthcare in those other environments
Mm-hmm.
before somebody gets to a hospital or after they departed? Because there's tremendous opportunity for everyone, right, to make sure that that functions at a real high level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's what we want for our families, right? Like, we don't just want their care to be solid once they go to the hospital. We want to see what we can do to prevent them from going. And we want to ensure that whatever caused them to go to the hospital, that they're set on the right course for long-term success.
Absolutely.
So, how does healthcare function in those spaces? I think is another area that, if I were a manufacturer, I'd look and see, well, what can we do in these other spaces to truly improve care delivery?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my own personal opinion. I think it's so interesting how so much focus was traditionally in just this one space,
Yeah.
and so much broader than that.
The bigger picture, and you've helped us see it today, Andre. I could have part 1, 2, 3, 4 with you. I think this is a great conversation. I'd love to invite you back as well, because I think this will have a huge response. It's the direction we're going. We didn't even get to talk about AI yet, but I don't want to intrude on your time too much here. Thank you for being on. This is just fantastic and so
Man,
relevant.
listen,
Yeah.
I thank you. Back in 2004, when I was in Chicago for NSM meeting, and got a chance to chat with you, and you gave me some really good guidance and perspective around what to do in advance of getting an opportunity with Medtronic. And 3 years later, based on a lot of the things that you shared with me and others shared with me, I was able to apply it and get my first real opportunity in medical device. And so, I always hold you in high regard, because the same person that took the time to support me through that journey is doing that now for hundreds of people Some people you work with directly, and some that have never met you, that are
Right.
simply listening to the words that you're able to share and the environments that you're able to curate, so that that information can go out to others and hopefully get them uh, on their journey to make an impact in this world called healthcare. So I appreciate and thank you for everything that you've done for me, but also for all the people who are listening in, because it truly makes a difference. It's hard to find that information on your own. So this podcast and the foundation that you established within your organization is doing a wonderful job of helping people along their journey. So we all salute you.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of people invested in me, and it's not meant to be kept. It's meant to be given out. And that's my opinion, so thank you. And thank you for being on, man. It's awesome. And you have an open door invitation to come back. Okay.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Absolutely.